This is Kilo 5 Victor Zulu. My name is Jim, and I'll be the net control station for tonight's net by the Buttsville Amateur Radio Association. This net is held every Saturday night at 19:30 hours local on the frequency, which is 145.17 megahertz, with a offset and a PL tone of 110.9. This net provides education and discussion about amateur radio topics. All stations licensed to transmit on this frequency are welcomed and encouraged to participate by checking in to tonight's net. Tonight's net will be conducted as a directed net in order to practice proper operating procedures. Therefore, please do not transmit without direction from net control, and all stations are reminded to ID themselves at the end of their transmissions. This net will give priority to any emergency or sky-warn activation. If there's an emergency or sky-warn activation, we'll end the net at that time. Stations with emergency or priority traffic may enter the net anytime by using the words break, break, followed by your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic for the net? If so, please call net control now. Nothing heard, so let's get started with check-ins. And in station wishing to check in to tonight's net, please call net control now with your call sign phonetic and your first name.
Kilo Oscar 0 Mike, Eric.
Foxtrot Julie, Kent.
If you need me to.
We had several doubles. I did get O0M and Kilo Golf 5. Mike Foxtrot Juliet. Can everybody else that was trying to check in, can you please try again?
This is Kilo 5 Whiskey X-Ray Romeo Lee. Low power, but I have a better radio available if you need me.
Thanks for checking in, Lee. Is there anybody else wanting to check in?
Whiskey Zulu 5 Tango Mike Tim.
All right, Tim, we got you. We'll give one last call out. Anybody else wishing to check into tonight's net, please call net control now.
Kilo 5 Foxtrot Oscar X-Ray John.
Kilo Golf 5 Mike Foxtrot Short time.
All right, I got John and Joe. Thank everybody for checking in. So now it's time to unveil tonight's topic, which is an introduction to D-Star. The presentation for tonight is available on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Whiskey5 Lima Victor Charlie, or you can go to our website, Whiskey5 Lima Victor Charlie Oscar Romeo Golf /Sarah Tango Bravo Alpha November Echo Tango. That'd be STBA net. I'll give everybody a little bit of time to pull up the presentation. If you have issues accessing the presentation, please notify net control, and we'll try to take your questions on how to access it. Hopefully everybody has been able to get to the presentation for tonight. If anybody is having issues, please call net control now before we get started.
W5FKN.
K5WXR.
Go ahead, Lee.
Is it vital or very important as part of the presentation to follow along? Because I don't have a computer with me and I'm on my handheld, but I could go make the computer and better radio happen, but it'll take about 10 or 15 minutes.
No, there's going to be some graphics that we're going to talk about, but we'll also be putting this up as a YouTube video afterwards, so you can always either go back and look at the presentation or the video. So it's not imperative that you have it. I just figured it'd be easier to explain some of the topics.
Okay, thank you very much. I know a little bit about it, so I'll be able to follow along in my mind, I'm sure. Thank you, K5WXR.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions before we get started? Okay, nothing heard. So we're going to start off with slide number 3. What is D-STAR? D-STAR is an acronym for the term Digital Smart Technologies for Amateur Radio. It's an open standard that was created by the Japan Radio League in the late 90s. A lot of people think it was a proprietary standard created by ICOM, but actually it's a open standard that was created by an amateur radio league. Currently, D-STAR radios are sold by ICOM and Connect Systems, and Flex Radio actually has a dongle that you can install that will allow you to do D-STAR over your Flex radio system. Like I said, it's not proprietary to ICOM. The only proprietary piece involved in D-STAR is the AMBE voice encoder, which is used to convert your audio into a 2400 bit per second data stream. So that piece is actually paid by Digital Voice Systems Incorporated, DVSI, and you'll be seeing this chip in things like DMR radio, as well as Fusion and the old P25 systems. So let's go ahead and let's move over to slide number 4. So D-STAR is actually a digital mode that allows us to send both voice and data over our radios at the same time using a 4800 per second data stream, and it uses a 6 kilohertz bandwidth. So that, since it is at 4800 bits per second, we're only transmitting in the VHF range and above. So you'll find it on 2 meters, 70 meters, and 23 centimeters are the most common you'll find it on. So that's 144 megahertz, 400 megahertz, and 1.2 gigahertz. The data stream consists of 3,600 bits per second of voice data with 1,200 bits per second of forward correction interleaved with 1,200 bits of data. Some D-STAR radios provide digital position reporting. It's called DPS, and what that does is it takes your GPS data and sends it to the D-STAR repeater, which is then sent via the Internet gateway to the APR system. So if you have a digital system and you're talking to a D-STAR repeater, you can get APRS data transferred. A lot of the D-STAR repeaters are actually linked to other readers and reflectors via an Internet gateway, and we'll talk about that a little bit more coming up. Let's go ahead and we'll move to slide number 5. Well, one of the things that they do is, based on the band that you're actually operating on, or the repeater's operating on, they'll actually suffix the repeater name with a designator. So the examples I have here are for the W5NGU D-STAR repeater. So they have W5NGU-B, which is going to be on the 70 centimeter or 400 megahertz band. The Charlie repeaters are usually on the 2 meter band. And then if you ever hear of a G repeater, that's actually the Internet gateway. And that is actually what's hooked up to the repeater and actually to the Internet. So it's actually used to actually access the Internet. Now, reflectors are actually servers that are sitting on the Internet that can actually be connected to by D-STAR systems to create a hub. So we can take a bunch of repeaters and connect them all into a reflector, and then all communications would go to that reflector. And so if we were to broadcast on the W5NGU repeater and it's connected to reflector 1, let's say, every repeater that's connected to reflector 1 would actually hear our broadcast, and vice versa. So reflectors are normally named with REF, and then the number 001, and then they have a channel A through F. So a reflector may have up to 6 different channels. Let's go ahead and move to slide number 6. So the modes of operation is, if I have a D-Star radio and another friend of mine has a D-Star radio, we could actually do basic simplex calling, where I talk directly to you with your D-Star radio. We could also do a local area call. We access a local D-Star repeater. And the only thing different between the simplex call and the local area call is that it's a digital stream of data. If you were to listen to that frequency, you're going to hear a bunch of popping, squealing, and sounds, because it actually uses it's a Gaussian multiple shift keying to actually take our data and put it on the FM airwave. Now, the last type of operation is called a gateway call. And what that does is we connect to the repeater. We link that repeater up with either another repeater across the internet or a reflector, and then as we talk on the repeater, our voice is actually set across the internet to that other repeater or reflector. And that's shown there on the bottom of number 6. Now, what this allows us to do is I can sit here, and on the W5NGU repeater, I can actually link that to a repeater in Japan or Germany or Australia or possibly a reflector, and I can talk to anybody around the world as long as that internet link is up and running.
W5FKN.
Now let's go ahead and we're going to take a break. I'm going to do station identification, and we'll take some more check-ins before we get moving any further. This is K5VZ for the Louisville Amateur Radio Association's topic or subject to be announced net on the W5FK repeater. If there's any other stations that'd like to check into tonight's net, please call Net Control now with your call sign phonetically followed by your first name.
KG5 ELB, James.
I'm not sure if I got your call sign correctly. I got KG5 ELB, Limo Bravo, James. Is that correct?
No, it's Kilo Golf 5, Bravo, Lima, Bravo. Sorry about that. Should have done it phonetically.
Okay, I copy. Kilo Golf 5, Bravo, Lima, Bravo. Welcome to the net, James. Anybody else like to check in? James, I don't know if you heard the net earlier, but we do have a presentation that we're following along with. If you're near a computer, you can go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Whiskey5 Lima Victor Charlie, and there's a link there. That'd be the easiest way to get to it. Otherwise, we'll actually have a posting on the Facebook page later tonight with the full recording with the slides as well. So if you just want to listen and then follow along later, you can as well. All right, let's go to slide number 7, and these are what they call the different applications of D-Star. So the first and main application is actually transferring digital voice from your handheld or your base station through a repeater to an internet to another repeater or just locally between radios. The second application is we can actually send short data messages, usually around 20 characters at a time over our data stream. And that can actually be sent to another user that's on the network or to other systems. There's actually a program called D-RATS, that Romeo Alpha Tango, that they actually, some ECOM units use to actually send the data for MCOM documents. So that was a kind of a slow network style thing, but a lot of people are still using it. As I mentioned before, we can also send GPS data through the DPRS network, which will then be translated to the network through an I gateway and out to the APRS. So your vehicle can be tracked or your location can be tracked just like anybody else that has APRS, but you actually have to do this through a D-Star repeater. There's also, in the 1.2 gigahertz spectrum, D-Star supports what they call DD mode, which is a fast data mode, sends data at 128 kilobits per second, so you can actually internet access. And so you can actually hook your computer up to your D-Star radio at 1.2 gigahertz and actually browse the net. And then they also do IP cameras via DD mode. So those are the current applications that people are using or D-Star radio for today. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start next to slide number 8 and talk about what you need to get started with D-Star radio. So we'll start out with slide 9. If you're considering wanting to do D-Star, before you go buy anything and you've made the decision, the best thing to do is to go ahead and register with your local D-Star gateway. And the reason that is sometimes it can take several days for your registration to come to be approved and get in the system so that you'll be able to access the gateways and the other repeaters. Now, you don't need to be registered with the D-Star gateway to actually use D-Star and talk to your local repeater, but if you want to use the gateway and access reflectors or other repeaters via your local D-Star repeater, you're going to want to do that. And our local one here for the Louisville area is going to be at the DACARA website. So go to DACARA.net. That's Delta Charlie Alpha Romeo Alpha.net, and look at their repeater page. Down at the bottom, they have a link to the D-Star registration. So once you've got your D-Star registration going, you're going to want to look at radios or devices that will allow you to encode your voice and actually use it. So ICOM right now I'll say they have the biggest line of D-Star radios. They have handy-talkies, they've got mobile rigs, they've got base stations that'll do it, and they are the manufacturer of the D-Star repeaters. Some people have actually done home-built repeaters, but ICOM is the biggest brand. Now, Systems also has a handheld that you can purchase that does D-Star, and that's about it. Now, hopefully, toward sometime this year into next year, Kenwood will actually have a radio that will be doing D-Star because they made an announcement at Hamvention this year. Now, let's say you don't spend a whole lot of money, you just want to try it out. You can do something like buy a DV dongle, which is shown on slide 11. What this does is plugs into your computer via a USB port, and then you use your headset and a mic and your internet connection, and you run the software, and it allows you to connect to repeaters and reflectors via the internet. So this is a way to get your feet wet and try it out without spending $300-400 for a D-Star radio. Another company that makes devices that will allow you to use a computer to get on the net was Northwest Digital Radio. They make the Thumb DV, which is, again, just a USB dongle that has the AMB voice coder in it. Well, and they also make a hat for the Raspberry Pi called the Pi DV, which you can plug in, and it does all the voice encoding for you.
W5FKN.
I'm going to take a break here and see if there's any questions from anybody on the net. And always remember, I'll make sure to pause between slides. So if you do have questions, throw your call sign out there and let's ask them while they're relevant. So if anybody has a question about the material we covered so far, please call Net Control now. Okay, nothing heard, so let's move on to slide number 13. Let's say that you did buy a D-Star radio and you're having trouble getting to the local repeater. You just can't make it. Well, what you can do is you can buy a board like the DV Mega. This through Gigaparts. It sits on top of a Raspberry Pi, and it turns your computer into, or the Raspberry Pi actually into a D-Star access point. So with your Raspberry Pi hooked up to your internet connection, you can actually use your radio, talk to the Raspberry Pi, because this has got a full-blown dual-mode radio on it. It'll do 2 meters and 70 centimeters, and it will actually receive that data, transmit it over the internet, and what comes back from the internet, it'll relay it back to your radio. I have one of these, and I actually used to use this because access points are a great option if you don't want to tie up the local repeater, because you want to be on one reflector and somebody else wants to be on a different reflector. A repeater could only be on one reflector at a time. So I actually use this for when I'm wanting to roam around and talk to people, and I don't want to take up the repeater. Another access point that you can buy, which works much like the DV dongle, is called the DV Access Point dongle, and it again is a USB device that you plug into your Windows or your Mac or your Linux machine, and it actually has a radio built into it. So you basically use your D-Star radio, you communicate to the access point dongle, and then it transfers your data over the internet. These guys I saw today at HRO run about $300. So it's not a cheap option, but if you really want to do D-Star and you're not near a repeater, it's the best way that you can do it. All right, let's go ahead and do a station identification again and take some more check-ins. This is K5VZ for the Louisville Amateur Radio Association's subject to be announced net, the W5FKN repeater. If there's any other stations that'd like to check into the net at this time, please call Net Control with your call sign phonetically, followed by your first name. Okay, nothing heard. So let's start talking about basic operation, what you have to do to connect to a repeater, can connect to remote repeaters, and make your contacts. So starting with slide 16, we're going to talk about the 4 call signs that are transmitted with every transmission that you make over D-Star. The first call sign is the UR call sign, and what this actually is it's a command to the D-Star system telling it what you want to do. The most common ones are going to be CQ, 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 which means you want to talk on the repeater or the repeater gateway link that it's connected to. You could also send a call sign. One of the things that D-Star does is it does call routing. So I could put in KO0M in the UR field, and I can key the mic, and the D-Star system is going to try to locate Eric on his D-Star radio and send my transmission directly to Eric. That's called call sign routing or call routing. The other common commands are called reflector linking and unlinking, and you can also do this with the repeater linking. Basically, you put in the name of the reflector or the repeater that you want to link to, followed by an L, and then you key the repeater, and it is going to link that repeater. When you're done using the remote repeater, then you should always unlink the repeater, and you do that by sending 8 spaces with a U at the end of the command. Now, this stuff is actually, if you get some of the newer D-Star radios, you don't have to remember it's 8 spaces. You just pick the option that says unlink repeater or unlink gateway. And this is probably the best time to kind of talk about a little bit of D-Star etiquette. Before you get on the D-Star repeater and you start changing things around, you should actually request, kind of like we do when we're on HF and we're wanting to use a frequency, we need to say, is the repeater in use? May I link it another location. If somebody is using the repeater at that time, they're going to come back and say, well, no, we're using it, and we're linked to such and such, and so you'll wait until they're done using it. If nobody's using the repeater and you want to go ahead and link it, it's always best to check the repeater status, and there's actually a button that will allow you to do that. If it's linked to another reflector, not the one you want to do, always make sure you unlink it first and then link the repeater. And once you've linked the repeater, you want to switch your UR command to the CQ command so that you're not forcing the repeater to link over and over and over. Now the second call sign, which is the RPT1 call sign, actually contains the local repeater that you're actually accessing. And that's usually, you'll see that on most radios as the from field on your display. The third call sign is the RPT2 field, and that is normally the local repeater's internet gateway. And this is actually kind of how it routes things. So it goes from RPT1 to RPT2, and then to like the UR command.
W5FKN.
And then the final call sign that's transmitted is the my call, which is actually your call sign that you've registered with D-Star. And this actually is what allows you to change the repeater in that, because the repeater gateway is going to look that up, and if it's present in the database, it's going to go ahead and act on your UR command. Otherwise, it's just going to let you talk to the local repeater and nothing else. Well, back in the early days when D-Star was just starting out, you had to know all four of these call signs, and every time you wanted to do a transmission, you needed to make sure that they were properly set up. It's actually a lot easier now with the newer D-Star, like starting with the ID51. When it came out, they actually changed it, made it a lot easier. You have a from and a to, and you set your my call in the radio, so it's always set, and so they kind of build that dynamically for you. So what we're going to do with slide number 17 is we're going to kind of talk about how we link to a local repeater. So on slide 17, I've got some of the screenshots out of the, I think this is out of the ICOM 7100, or no, this is out of the 5100 manual. And so when you start out, you're going to use D-Star. There's a button on your 5100, and actually on all the ICOM radios it says DR. And when you press that, that puts you into your digital voice mode or your D-Star mode. And you're going to get a screen like the one on the left, which says to and from. And we'll kind of go through that here in a second. Let me go ahead and break. So the from field is going to be the repeater that the local repeater. And the to field is going to be where you want to send your data, your voice data to. So if we wanted to change it, and in this case here, all their examples are based on you're in Japan. So what we would do is we would highlight the from field, select it, and we'll get a pop-up menu that says, select my from location. We can either use a repeater list, we can use a near repeater if we got GPS data running, and it will find the closest repeater for you, or we can look at our past transmit history. So in this case here, we've highlighted repeater list. And if we go to slide 18, we'd go through that repeater list of the group until we found the country we're in. We'd select that group. In this case here, it's Japan. And then we would go in there. There's going to be basically a repeater list inside the group, and we'd find the name of the repeater that we're looking for. In this case, they're using Hirano, which is in Osaka, Japan. JP3YH. And once we select that, it's returned back to the main D-Star screen. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to highlight the to button. And since we want to talk on the local repeater, we just want to leave it at CQ. And then we can go ahead and key up the repeater and talk just like we would normally do on an analog radio, but we're doing this all digitally. Now we can change that to function, so if we wanted to talk to another repeater, let's say, across, where we can't reach it, we can actually, with slide 19, we can actually go through and do pretty much the same thing. We can actually change the to line and actually go out and link to another repeater. So the first thing we do, you pick the local repeater, which we're doing here on slide 19. We select our from, we pick the repeater list. And on slide 20, we pick our region, and then we pick the local repeater. And then once that repeater has been selected, we highlight the to field. Now, when we click to change the to field, we're going to get another menu that says, where do you want to send your voice data to? Do I want to do a local CQ? Do I want to do a gateway CQ? Do I want to pick a reflector? Do I want to put a call sign from my receive history? In this case here, we're going to say gateway CQ, which means that we want to go link to a repeater. So we'd go in the repeater group, pick the location, and then pick the remote repeater. In this case here, they're Hamacho and Geo, as they're going to pick. And then on slide 22, they're basically, you key up the repeater, say, KVZ, listening on Hamacho. And then when you unkey it, it's going to come back to you, and it's going to give you a UR with your call sign or a UR question mark, but that's an indicator that you've sent your data across from the repeater across the internet to the other repeater, and then you'd carry on a conversation with somebody else on the remote repeater, just like you would if you were talking on your local repeater. Now, if you're not sure that you're actually making it in to the repeater or that you're registered properly, slide 23 shows the last heard list, and this is out at dstarusers.org. When you go out there, you can click on last heard, and it actually shows you all the people who have actually been on the D-Star network and talked to a repeater over the last 10-15 minutes. You can actually go back in time, and you can actually look for your call sign to appear. If it shows up on the last heard list, then you know that your system's configured properly and everything. There just isn't anybody else on the other repeater. But that's one way you could actually troubleshoot to make sure that you're actually making it out there. Now, I'm going to break here. We'll do another station identification, and we'll take some questions. This is K5EZ for the Louisville Amateur Radio Association, subject to be announced net on the W5FK repeater. If there's any other stations that'd like to check into tonight's net, please call now with your call sign phonetically, followed by your name. Okay, nothing heard. So slides 24 and 25 are resources that you can use on the internet. There's the Wikipedia entry for D-Star. DStar101.com is a great place to go out and learn more about D-Star, how to use your radios. There's the link to the ICOM D-Star site, links for the DV Mega, the Thumb DV, the DVAP dongle.
W5FKN.
And then on slide 25, I have a link to the DECARA's D-Star registry, their library on how to register. I suggest you go, if you're thinking of setting up your call sign, go out, read the library article on what to do and how to actually enter your data, and then go out to decara.net/dstar.htm and go ahead and register. Now, there's also the dstargateway.org, which is the one that actually oversees it. They have more information out there. The link to the last heard page. There's also a link to a video here that goes into more detail about the 4 call signs. And then if you're interested in knowing what kind of reflectors are out there and what they serve, If you go to dstarinfo.com/reflectors.aspx, you can see a list of all the reflectors, status, and actually what they serve. There's like, I think Reflector 01 Charlie is actually like the international reflector, and it's a great place to hang out and talk to people all over the place. I think 12 Charlie is actually used quite a bit as well. And they actually host nets on here just like you would on a local net, local repeater, but there's people from all over the world that will actually be on these nets. So they're a really great place. I know the Papa system holds nets quite a bit on the 12 Charlie repeater. So this is another way you can actually use radios to actually, connect locally, but use the internet to connect with people. So now I'm going to open it up for questions. So if anybody has a question about the material tonight, please call Net Control now.
KO0M.
Heard either I'm really good at explaining this stuff, I've put you guys all to sleep, or you just have no idea what to ask. So let's move on to general announcements. In tonight's net, I'd like to open the net for general announcements to anyone. That you have an upcoming event that you want to talk about, bring it up to attention to everybody, or you got something that you would like to, of an amateur radio nature, you're either looking for or looking to get rid of. So anybody that has a general announcement, please call Net Control now.
KO0M.
Go ahead, Eric.
Everybody to remember, we got field day coming up, so go out to the website, W5LVZ, and go down to the sign-up sheet. Also, Jim's got a sign-up on there for getting a T-shirt as well. Granted, you won't receive that T-shirt now, but it's good for future events, so pay that in mind. Back to net.
All right, thanks a lot, Eric. Anybody else got an announcement or something for buy, sell, swap, or trade?
KG5MFJ to net.
Go ahead, Kit.
Yes, I have a radio now. It's an all-band transceiver, and I'm just getting started, so I need to do the grounding, the ground plate, and 20 or 40 meter dipole. So if anybody has any extra toys that they want to sell, get in touch with me, if you would, through my email or anything like that. Or if you just want to come over and see the radio, give me a call. Back in that.
Well, and Kent, when you get ready to put in your your grounding system, get with Chris Nelson, WA5TT, I think it is. He just went through and did that, and he did a pretty extensive workup, so he could give you all sorts of pointers on what you need to do. Anybody else with any other general announcements?
KO0 comment.
Go ahead, Eric.
Hey, Kent, why don't you bring that radio to field day, and then you can try it out there, and we have all kinds of equipment out there that can hook up to it, and we can see how well it's doing. Back to net.
No, that's actually a great suggestion. If you did get a new toy from Hamcom, or you went to Hamvention, or you got something you just want to try, field day is a great day for that. Matter of fact, I just picked up a new radio today, and if it's not too hot, we might be swapping out my old mobile rig for the new one. But that all depends on whether the temperatures will be kind to it. Anybody else with other announcements or anything else, swap or trade?
KG5MFJ.
Go ahead, Kent.
Well, I don't know what your outline is, but there has to be at least a statement made about thanks for the presentation tonight, because that was fantastic. It just took one topic and went through it, and you're done. It's just very, very short, concise, to the point, and quite brilliant. Thank you very much. back to net.
Thank you, Kent. I hope this will give you an idea of what D-Star is about, and if you're interested in it, I'm thinking of bringing the, I'll probably bring at least my D-Star walkie-talkie with me. I know Eric's got one, and if you want to hear it, see what it's about, we'll have it there for field day as well. I do have a couple of announcements. The first one is tomorrow at 2 o'clock on the 9.2 repeater. Lee's got his broadband hamnet. So the hamnet hemmed. So if you're interested in broadband, what's going on with broadband hamnet and the new protocol Arden, that's a place to get information. From what I understand, Lee's been very busy with getting everything going and getting the new Arden software up and running and connected into the broadband system. So I'm sure he's got plenty to talk about. Also, Wednesday evening at 7 p.m., we'll have our general information and net. So if you've got questions, you're unsure about something, or you just got general questions, you want to get them answered, that's a great place to do it. Hopefully we'll have somebody on there that can answer your question. And I'll open it up one last time for anybody else that might have another announcement. Okay, nothing heard. Well, I'll actually be pulling the audio off of Broadcastify and actually getting the YouTube up later tonight. So if you want to go back and check out other points of presentation, I'll have a link to it up on the Facebook site and on the YouTube channel probably later tonight or tomorrow afternoon at the latest. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and this will conclude this session of the Louisville Amateur Radio Association subject to be announced net. All stations are invited to call us on the air following the net with any questions or comments. This is K5VZ, returning the W5FKN repeater to normal amateur use and closing the net at 2021.